I'm sitting in a classroom with my wife Liz in an old building somewhere in Syracuse, New York. Liz has signed us up to learn Spanish, and it's the first day of class. Now, I haven't sat in a classroom for 10 years since I was in college. Liz is really excited. She lived in Mexico for a year when she was in high school, but she attended an American school and she didn't really learn Spanish, so she sees this as her shot. I'm also really excited. I've been talking about learning Spanish for years. Now, I'm looking around the classroom at some of the other students, and they're all older adults like us. Actually, they're a lot older. There's the dentist who wants to learn Spanish because he loves to travel in Mexico. There's the nurse who does volunteer work in Central America. And then there's me. I'm looking around, and I realize I'm the only Latino in the class. I'm the only one with the Spanish last name, Gonzalez. Not even the teacher is Hispanic. She's a retired high school teacher with gray hair, and her name is Mrs. Shouty, but she wants to be called Senora Shouty. Now, she is super sweet, not like that high school teacher I had who flunked me my junior year. Boy, was my mom mad. I remember coming home from school and seeing that F on my report card, and my mom saying, "I'm a Spanish teacher, and my own son is flunking Spanish?" Well, there's a reason why I don't speak Spanish. I'm one of 3 kids, and we grew up in Chicago. And when we were little, my Mexican-American mom and my Cuban immigrant dad spoke to us mostly in Spanish at home. But when my older brother got to school, a teacher told my parents, "Stop speaking to them in Spanish. You're doing them a disservice." See, back then, the attitude was, this is America, where we only speak English. Well, Senora Shouty starts the class, and I'm hearing her Spanish words, and they're sounding really familiar. A lot of the Spanish that I learned growing up starts to come back, and it's bringing back a lot of feelings. And I'm thinking to myself, the Spanish-speaking population in the United States is really growing. And as a Latino, being able to speak Spanish, that could really help my career. But it's also kind of stirring up a lot of really painful memories that I've had of discrimination and racism that I experienced growing up. Like when they used to call us spics and gang members when we moved from Chicago to the mostly white suburbs, or when they nicknamed my twin brother and I Spick and Span. They thought it was funny, but we didn't. Now, those experiences, those were a real blow to my self-esteem. They made me actually feel ashamed to be Latino, and it made me not want to speak Spanish. I just wanted to fit in. Well, a couple years later, and now I'm sitting in another classroom, this time on the campus of Syracuse University. I've just come back from spending 3 whole months studying Spanish in Cuernavaca, Mexico. And my Spanish has gotten a lot better, and I'm determined not to lose what I've learned. So I decided to start taking college courses in Spanish, and it's the first day of class. I'm looking around at the students around me, and they're all way younger than me now. I'm the only kind of adult professional in the class. They're all full-time students. And I'm also noticing that a lot of them are Latinos and Latinas. And whenever the professor calls on them, I notice that their Spanish sounds perfect. They're rolling their R's like they were born with special tongues, and their accents are really sing-songy and beautiful. I am so envious. And it also makes me feel kind of embarrassed that they're going to hear my monotone gringo accent. But I keep raising my hand every chance that I get. One day, I'm rushing back to work after class, and I see a bunch of students standing in the hallway. And I recognize that some of them are the Latinas from my class. And then right then, I hear one of them say really loud, "I hate the way he speaks Spanish." And then her friend says, "Who?" And she points a finger right in my face, and she hisses, "Him." Well, needless to say, I am mortified. I'm thinking, that they would be really proud to see a Latino in their class trying to learn Spanish. But instead, they're making fun of me. And in some ways, their comments are more painful than the racial slurs that I heard growing up. But I don't give up. If anything, it makes me more determined than ever to learn Spanish. Well, it's been more than 20 years since I sat in those classrooms in Syracuse, and I now work as a journalist in Phoenix, Arizona. And writing about immigration and the state's huge Latino population gives me the chance to speak Spanish almost every day. My Spanish has gotten a lot better. I'm not fluent like those Latino students at Syracuse who grew up speaking Spanish and English, but I can speak pretty well. Puedo hablar bastante bien. But you know what? I've realized that you don't have to speak Spanish to be Latino. And it's not your fault if you don't. I've met a lot of Latinos who don't speak Spanish. But I've also learned that speaking another language, that is power. That is power that teacher in Chicago tried to rob. And that is also power that's given me the ability as a bilingual journalist to interview people and tell stories that others can't. Now, some of those stories were part of a big journalism project that won the Pulitzer in 2018. And standing on that stage at Columbia University in New York to help accept the Pulitzer on behalf of our team, that was like a dream come true. But really for me, the biggest prize, the biggest reward was the language and the identity that I reclaimed. Thank you.